I started the month of October with Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred expansion. And I gotta say, I'm a little mixed on it. Because Vessel of Hatred is pretty good as a content update for Diablo 4 in the context of a live service. You'll definitely want it if you're consistently playing both for the Spiritborn and the Runes. And I have to say, the Spiritborn, really fun class, and the Runes do add some interesting character building possibilities. But for me, standalone expansions, especially from Blizzard games, always meant story. And to be blunt, the story for Vessel of Hatred sucked. I went into this wanting to do a campaign playthrough, to take my time, to read all the dialogue, to do all the quests, and I was looking forward to making a video sharing that. But halfway through, all I had written in my notes were, Urivar won't last long, wow, we survived so much just to get taken out like that, and I don't care about any of these people. Which is to say that that video never got made. And if you're playing Diablo 4 for the story alone, you should probably give Vessel of Hatred a pass. Here's hoping that the story playthrough I do for Path of Exile 2 is a little less disappointing. But on the other hand, the Spiritborn, or Green Monk, feels great to play, and balance issues aside, I think it's the best put together class in the game. What I mean by that is the way in which each of the 4 different spirits provides unique benefits, while also interacting and synergizing, maybe with the help of some unique items, creates an effect where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So, for example, if you're playing a primarily Eagle-focused build, you'll get a lot of bonuses related to speed, and because you have all those speed bonuses, you're probably hitting frequently enough to benefit from the damage amplification provided by the Jaguar skills. On the other hand, if you're playing a really tanky character and using some of the Gorilla defenses, you might benefit from some of the Thorn synergies available to both Gorilla and Jaguar. In addition to this, the Diablo 4 endgame loop is much improved. When the game first came out, it had grinding nightmare dungeons. That was pretty much it. You could do stuff in the world, but you didn't have to do it too often. Now, you have bosses, sometimes with interesting seasonal mechanics, nightmare dungeons, the pit, which is basically just D3 greater rifts, open world events like Helltide and Whispers, infernal hordes, think Bullet Heaven or roguelike kind of thing, and the Crest Undercity, which is a time attack mode. At least for me, doing bosses for 4 hours in a row, really boring. But spending maybe a half-hour on bosses, then going and doing a couple of infernal hordes, and maybe catching the recent Helltide, and after that swapping and running some tributes into Crest Undercity, well, that's an endgame loop with a lot more variety. All of which is to say, I had a good week of fun playing Vessel of Hatred. But after that, I was starting to feel the nagging itch of live service burnout, which wasn't helped at all by the changes to Torchlight Infinite. I tried Frozen Canvas Season, and I didn't find it to my liking. There were way too many changes in the direction of retention, and due to some unfortunate balance decisions, too little in the way of letting you play different builds. Right now, if you want to do the hardest content in the game, there's very few things that's going to do it efficiently. And on everything else, it's going to be a very long and very boring grind to get there. So after about a week, much less than I usually play, I also quit the Torchlight season. But I'm sure I'll be back, because they tend to change things up a lot, and they'll revisit things in the future. And so, to cure my feeling of live service burnout, I turned to what I usually do, playing a bunch of indie games, starting with Wayfinder, which finally entered 1.0. Originally, I jumped in for the Echoes update, and even back then, it felt pretty good, but 1.0 is a noticeable step up. In part, thanks to the new zone, as they added quite a bit of content with 1.0, but also, in part to the quality of life update that came just before, that added a menu option which allows you to scale all the content up to your level. Which means I can now do level 30 content on my level 30 characters, even if I'm in the game's first zone, which is really good because sometimes the first zone has really cool items that you want to farm. And whereas before they simply weren't worth using because their item power was too low, now at level 30, they're a much more competitive option. And so I spent another 30 hours playing various different builds. I did some Nis, some Kairos, ultimately didn't stick with either of them, but Venomous. Now Venomous is a great character. And I did end up sticking with her for the longest because it is way too fun to nuke everything while constantly full healing. But if you want to know some more of my thoughts on Wayfinder, check out my full review, which I'll link up in the card and down below. And then the rest of my month was swallowed by the black hole that is Brotato's Abyssal Terror DLC, along with a good bit of my November. Now, since I last played Brotato, several new characters were added, and that was even before the Abyssal Terrors DLC, which added a new map, lots of spooky aliens like the super fun sharks that charge at you, and the curse mechanic, which is my favorite thing ever. In short, the more curse you get, the higher the chances for random enemies within the wave to be stronger. But the more curse you have, the higher your chances of finding cursed items. Cursed items have a much smaller downside and a much bigger upside, often even double. So while this is a double-edged mechanic, it is very, very fun, and I stack as much curse as possible. Because if I'm going to die to aliens at the bottom of a sea, I'm going to do it with 6 cursed items in my hands, goddammit, even if they're the things that ultimately get me killed. There are also many new ways to scale your characters and enable your builds, including new potatoes that gain different stats, weapons that scale off of things like luck, or items like the Nail and Frozen Heart, which add engineering and elemental scaling to all of your weapons respectively. These are really cool because my runs have been so much more varied than before. In the past, I would gravitate towards a range setup, frequently trying to build into nuke launchers and miniguns. But now I play a lot of elemental setups, things like icicles and fireballs. Or I'll play a melee build. Or I'll do wacky stuff like make a lifesteal build that somehow works really well, or stack a bunch of thief daggers. In comparison to Vampire Survivors, Brotato already did a pretty good job of making the runs feel different, but this really does take it up to 11. And so I have to say, this is still one of, if not my favorite games in the genre. Now, if you want to see a couple runs, maybe check out my Creature run. Creature is a new character who adds flat curse scaling, which makes him great for fast weapons. Because sure, an SMG might not scale too well off of your range damage, but you can get a lot more curse than you can range damage pretty darn easily. And your SMG scales the same amount off of that curse as a really slow and powerful weapon like an Obliterator. On the other hand, maybe you want something different, you're feeling a little lucky? Well, check out Druid, who gains luck when eating fruits. This is perfect for instruments, a new type of weapon that scales off of luck. The Abyssal Terrors DLC is only a couple bucks, and it's absolutely worth your time. So in short, I yet again cannot stop playing Brotato. It's just one more run that I have to go do. And speaking of, that's a pretty good place to call the video. And definitely not just because I'm thinking about how I want to log into Brotato and see if I can do something fun with, I don't know, maybe particle accelerators. So I guess if that sounds interesting to you, get subscribed, ring that notification bell, and hey, you made it to the end of the video, so leave a like while you're down there. Before I go, I've got a question for you. What did you play in October, and what are you looking forward to in November and December? For me personally, in November, I was looking forward to the Path of Exile 2 Early Access, but since they got pushed back to December, I've been catching up on a bunch of smaller indie games. You know, the sorts of titles that have a nice self-contained game loop and take dozens of hours rather than hundreds. So I guess keep an eye out for some indie Metroidvanias when I do my best games that I've played in November of 2024 next month. For now, thank you very much for watching to the end of the video. I'm glad you've enjoyed following along on this journey of the random stuff that I play, and I'll see you in the next one.